Hello everyone, this is Truebuckers back into the video, and today I'm going to talk about factory efficiency. This video will be divided into 3 sections, which is 1. Individual factory efficiency, 2. The entire production line efficiency, and 3. Daily efficiency. So without further ado, let's start with number 1. An individual factory efficiency or refining units will be calculated as so. How much items are entering your factory and how much items are going out, or the output of an item from the factory. So let's go into top view mode and let's see. As you can see right here, we do need 1 ferrium ore per process to produce 1 ferrium. And how long does the process take? It takes 2 seconds. What does this mean? It means that to calculate the input efficiency of the factory, we need to use this formula, which is how much items do we need to start a process divided by how long does it take for the process to happen. So in this case, 1 ferrium ore divided by 2 seconds, which means I'm using 0.5 ferrium ore per second. So this means in order for the factory to function at 100% efficiency, I do need 0.5 input rates per second. Now let's look on the output rate. The output rate is also simple. Just change the top one into the output. So how many items does the factory produce divided by how long does the factory need to produce said item, which means, like once again, 0.5. Let's move on to the entire production line's efficiency. So for the second part, in order to see the entire production line, I'm going to use this section right here. The refining unit, molding unit into the filling unit right here. So let's calculate our first efficiency, which is the refining unit, which is currently running at 100% efficiency. How do I know that? Because the conveyor belt is using 0.5 units per second, in which case 0.5 units, which is the same input output rate. But moving into the molding unit, as you can see right here, it needs 2 ferrium per 2 seconds. And if we calculate into the formula once again, this means that the required amount for it to reach 100% efficiency is 1 unit per second. This also means that with our current setup, which the refining is outputting, this is running at 50% efficiency because it is half of the required amount. And now let's look on our ferrium bottle. 1 ferrium bottle is produced each 2 seconds. And by that theory, we should, at 100% efficiency, produce 0.5 bottles per second. However, because the initial part is on 50%, means we are currently dividing the output as well by half, 50%. Which also means that our output is not 0.5, but instead 0.25. And as you can see right here, the conveyor belt is not filling up and has a little bit of a gap at some points. So now let's look onto our next part of, before the filling unit, of course, the next part, which is the planting unit and the seed picking unit, and also the shredding unit. To start, let's go into our seed picking unit. It requires 1 buck flour for every 2 seconds. Again, that's 0.5, because 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, but the output in this case is not 0.5. The output is instead 1. Which also means that in order for this to work at 100% efficiency, the output needs to have 2. We need 2 outputs, because a conveyor belt only takes in half a unit per second. So we go into our planting unit. Our planting unit only requires 1 instead of 2. Which means, in theory, seed picking units can power 2 planting units. And the input of this rate is also 0.5. Now, what if right? What if I only have this half of the factory and I don't have this planting unit per second? This means the seed picking unit will also be affected. Instead of running at 100% efficiency, now the output rate is 50%, which also means that the factory itself will clog up eventually. But why is this clogging up, right? Why is this unit clogging up? Let's go look again to our shredding unit. What is our shredding unit doing? Why is this clogging up? Well, because first of all, if you look on here, right, the output rate of the shredding unit is supposed to be 1 unit per second. But I only have one conveyor belt, which means it's outputting at 0.5 units per second, which is half the shredding unit's capabilities. This also means that once the shredding unit is full, every other factory behind it will also clog up. But as you can see right here, sometimes the shredding unit isn't the only thing that's full. It's also the filling unit at 50 maxed. And it has something to do with our molding unit. Our molding unit is currently outputting 0.25 units per second. But if you look on our 100% efficiency theory, our supposedly required amount is not 0.5, but it's 1 units per second, because 10 and also 10 divided by 10 is 1. So in our current state, the filling unit is running at not only 50% from the bug flour powder, but also nerfed from the ferrum bottle, running at 25% of its required input rate. Now this also means that in 100% theory is that normally the filling unit produces 1 bug flour capsule every 10 seconds. And in this case, 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. So the filling unit is supposed to be outputting 0.1 units per second. But because of the bottleneck that we currently have, 25% efficiency also translates to the output, which means that currently our filling unit is outputting 0.025 units per second, which is, as you can see, way less than what our conveyor belt is capable of. So now let's look onto our production line efficiency total, which is simple. We just take the last unit before it is run back to base, in which case this protocol stash that runs back to our automation core. And yes, our filling unit is currently running at 25% efficiency at a rate of 0.025 units per second. And I'm going to use this picture right here to describe it best. As you can see right here, every information is available. You can pause the video and see it for yourselves. So now let's move on into the daily efficiency. And this one is a bit more personal for you. Why is that? Well, because the daily efficiency is calculated based upon how long until you play Endfield again. So if you're playing on today, right, for a few hours and everything, and you close Endfield, and then the next day, how long would it take for you to open Endfield in the next day? So currently, usually, right, I would open Endfield after 10 hours of me sleeping, dinner, breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, we need to calculate our output rate by 10 hours, which might sound difficult, but it's completely easy because it's just, first of all, times 60 for the units per second to units per minute, and then units per hour, and then times the how long you would take to open Endfield again. So let's calculate it based on our filling unit. I am outputting 900 bug capsules every time I sleep and until I open Endfield again. And now let's check on our automation core. And let's see how much storage do we actually have. We currently have 34,000 for each unit, and a 900 is way below our max efficiency threshold. And so, in theory, you should expand it so that you would fill up the whole entire thing. But you also need to remember that you also need to make other stuff. What I'm trying to tell you is that in a daily efficiency matter, it's calculated not only just from your sleep cycle or how long you take to open Endfield again, but also has to do with our max local depot storage. If our local depot storage is too low for our daily output rates, then what you need to do is to reduce the amount of factories outputting it. So for example, if you have for a molding factory, it requires 2 refinings. Instead of having 2 refinings, you have 1. And this will nerf the efficiency of the production line by half, which also means you're nerfing the daily efficiency by half. And I want you to do that until you have enough storage for your daily output to not max out the storage. This will ensure that your factories would not clog up, because if it clogs up, then everything else might break. So yeah, I don't plan on adding this section before, so it might sound a little bit disconnected from the rest of the video, but I do hope that this also brings up a little bit more clarity. Someone mentioned to me that you haven't showed anything to increase the overall outputs of a factory, so increase the efficiency of a crippled factory. Let's head up to top view, and as you can see right here, currently our giving unit is full. Let's take that out. And now what I'm going to do is buff the molding unit. So currently, again, our filling unit is on 25% efficiency. We can buff our molding unit to have more efficiency by adding ourselves a refining unit. So the same concept with what I just mentioned. As you can see right now, because 2 refining units are now powering our molding unit, it is now working at 100% efficiency instead of the 50% that I mentioned. And as you can see right here, the conveyor belt is starting to fill up. And as soon as this reaches our filling unit, it will increase our production rate from 25% to 50%. So this is now working at 100%, and now our filling unit should be working at 50% efficiency. That also means that our filling unit, instead of 0.025 rate, is now outputting the buck flower capsule or buck capsule at a rate of 0.05 units per second. So I think that's it for factory efficiency. I think I discussed everything, and I hope that you find this video helpful. And I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye!